Throne Damper.
And this is the Road to Tarvalin, a Wheel of Time podcast. Not talking about the Wheel of Time today. We are jumping into House of the Dragon episode 8. And this one was directed by Geeta Vasant Patel and written by Ellen Shim. So we have female directed, female written on this episode.
Ooh.
How did you feel as a whole about this episode, Tracy?
The word that came to mind, oddly enough, was tender.
Yeah, it was. It was tragic, but also tender. I guess this is probably our last episode with Paddy Constantine, King Viserys.
Yeah.
And what a tragic rule he had. Yeah. Because on one hand, the way that he is portrayed by this actor is just absolutely magnificent.
Stellar.
But at the same time, looking at his reign within the context of the story, he didn't make the best decisions, but he wasn't a terrible guy.
No, that's true. Yep. But was he like the king he...
Coulda, shoulda, woulda
been? Yeah. And I mean, isn't that kind of like always the question, you know, like, could I have been this? Should I have been more this? I think with him, his focus on family is really big. Like, he strikes me as the kind of guy who would have been just so much happier if you put him in charge of like a big
farm.
Yeah, big farming family. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody has to work together to survive, like all the hard work and stuff. And I mean, that part of him is endearing, but it is not going to help him rule Westeros. We get, like you said, we get to the end of his storyline here. And what I want to talk about doesn't really come in until like the end of the episode, because of course he leaves a shitstorm behind him in his passing. And it's like everything else of what he's done. It's unintentional. This isn't exactly what he meant to do. It's waffly. And with his passing, he just stamps, this is how I've always been.
I'm thinking of that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme where they're like dressed in these like top hats and like really fancy tuxedos, and they're making the like boo-hoo motion, where it's like on one side I feel so sorry for this guy, like just it is unintentional, but at the same time it's like the most noble, highest ruling monarchy of this world, and it's like, we made all these bad decisions. Poor, rich, spoiled people.
Ooh, I'm glad you said that, because I felt that a couple different times in this episode too.
I mean, back and forth, like many of these characters are just so conceited and
oh my gosh,
only want what they feel is entitled to them. As much as I really loved this episode, I'm also missing a little bit of something from this show. Don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying this show thoroughly. But, and I guess like it's in the name, House of the Dragon, it's about the Targaryens, but I'm really missing what's going on outside of the Targaryen bubble. Like, what's going on in the lands of Westeros, where House of the Dragon feels very micro-focused on this one thing, and Game of Thrones was like kind of like House of the Dragon, but opened up between many different families and many different people of different classes and situations.
Moral codes even.
Yeah, I'm not knocking on House of the Dragon because I think it's great, but it's different, and it's just an observation, and it's something personally that, just in my opinion, I'm missing a little bit. So I guess like the ending of this episode was the most intriguing for me, when we have some characters that we haven't seen in many episodes returning, and we'll get to that at the end of the episode, I'm sure. But should we go ahead and start out where...
Yeah, for sure.
we begin on Driftmark, and Rhaenys is being met with a maester and hears that Corley's her husband, who she hasn't seen in nearly 6 years, wounded in the Stepstones, and Vaemond Valerian, who is Corley's brother, wants to petition King's Landing to remove Lucerys as heir, and this is basically on account of him being a bastard. And it's kind of implied here that Rhaenys might be looking at the Driftwood throne for herself. We also get a little bit of Baela, which I'm so happy that the daughters of Lena are back in the story and kind of more of a central part. And I like that this episode, it's repeatedly kind of mentioned that Baela is living at Driftmark and she's a ward of Rhaenys, which means she would have grown up with Rhaenys, kind of like an adopted daughter, so to speak. And I think this, I'm going to make a prediction about this.
Oh, please.
I kind of get this hint that Baela is going to become this force to be reckoned with, because her mother was kind of also this strong dragon rider, and now she's living with her grandmother, who is the same way. And so I kind of feel like Baela might be the one to look out for. And she was the one that was at this dinner, at this feast. She's the one that Aegon kept messing with and saying really crude, rude things about. And I feel like this is going to come back and haunt the children of Alicent.
Yes.
I've got a thing for Baela. I really like her.
I don't blame you. And I think that actually gets kind of set up in a couple different places in the episode, and even in episodes before this, I would say, where there does feel like there's a connection between, it's the children. Like, it's almost like Alicent's children versus all of the other children. And like this group of children, like the non-Alicent children, actually know how to behave.
Yeah.
And her children are, whoa.
Yeah.
And so there's there's this level of sophistication and diplomacy and poise that I feel like Baela has every time she's seen on camera. That opening scene where Rhaenys is on the throne and Baela is standing next to her and the light is filtering through, and it's just like this
There's
glow.
something about her.
Yeah, I was like, I see you. I see you.
We keep getting mentions of her upbringing and what's going on with her, even if it's just like a sprinkling of it. So I feel like they really want this sitting in the back of the viewers' heads.
I like that she gets to be raised by Rhaenys, though.
Me too.
I did not pay very close attention to Rhaenys when the show first started. She's such a subtle kind of character. She has very few lines. But as the season has progressed, as we've seen her more in her conversations and whatnot, I'm just like, I really like you. I feel like she's starting to kind of like come up and rise at this moment. Like you said, like it looks like she may have a design on the Driftmark throne. And why not? Why not? She's been denied her throne. Maybe it's her time to take it.
I mean, she's putting her foot down with Vaemond. And there's also... this episode, it's like all the women are making moves.
Yeah, they are.
For thrones right now, because we got Rhaenys sitting on the throne in Driftmark. We've got Alicent. I mean, she's in control of King's Landing.
Yep.
I mean, she's essentially ruling. So this whole, a woman can't sit on the throne. A woman can't sit on the throne. But Alicent is doing it right now.
Rhaenys is doing it right now.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the only reason why it's okay for Alicent to be doing this is because it's within the confines of the patriarchal system
Yep.
because she has Otto there with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, okay, like there's this blessing for her to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it were Rhaenyra, this is a no-no because
Mm-hmm.
Rhaenyra is outside of the societal norms.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at some point, Rhaenys flips and she's going from not being sure about Luke
Mm-hmm.
sitting at the
Mm-hmm.
head of Driftmark
Mm-hmm.
and controlling the fleet. And she's being met from many different sides because she has weight with her decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't quite sure why. What was it that had made her flip
Mm-hmm.
to Rhaenyra's side?
Yeah.
But it almost felt like when she arrives in King's Landing, after her whole life being told a woman can't sit on the Iron Throne, a woman can't sit in the Iron Throne, she gets there and Alicent is doing essentially this.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't quite sure what in her head clicked from the point of her not wanting to go along with Rhaenyra's plan
Mm-hmm.
or with Corley's plan and her flipping and being like, okay, like we're going to marry the kids together
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to support Rhaenyra in this decision.
Mm-hmm.
On the first watch, it felt jarring. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so just now all of a sudden she's like, I'm okay with putting my grandchildren in the line of danger in the succession that she's been adamant against. And now she's just like, okay, cool.
I'm thinking she says after she has that encounter with Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra proposes the marriage of the children, the aligning of the houses, the creation of an alliance instead of like a continuing of the division of the families. They have their little discussion, and at the end of it, Rainey says something along the lines of like, "Tomorrow the High Towers land their first blow, and I will stand alone." And so, I think the other thing she says, and they will bring you to your knees. Like she says that to Rhaenyra. So in that moment, I think she's seeing the power play between Vaymond and Alicent, and if she sides with Rhaenyra, she's gonna like be on her own essentially, maybe. But then when Viserys shows up in the throne room and is like, this is already a decided thing. And the only person who really has anything to say about this is Rhaenys. Now the
Mm-hmm.
king is back in saying the things, he's reaffirming the legitimacy. And if Rhaenys steps in and is like, well, you know, actually, Rhaenyra and I just had a chat, and we're marrying our houses, and everything's gonna be hunky
Mm-hmm.
dory. Like that gives her a place of stability to
Mm-hmm.
work from. I think she's working. She's kind of Moraine like.
It almost gives her a bit of freedom as well
Yeah,
because if this does all work out, then who's going to be the one there mentoring
exactly.
this couple at Driftmark?
Yep.
Luke and Lena?
And maybe even a culmination of what she's been denied and what she might be able to actually hope for. Like there is a
Right.
surprising level of hope in this episode for it being like
Yes.
this series. There were so many moments I was
Yes.
like crying. I was crying with like the
Yeah, so was
family
I.
connections, like just so many moments that this was a really 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 good episode. I feel like maybe she wants that. You know, like if her husband really is dead, she's kind of on her own. And this
Right.
way, she's not boosted from power in any way, really.
Right.
Those kids are still too young. She'll probably continue to have a regent role, you know?
Right.
And I mean, she doesn't, like you said, she doesn't really want to be in all of the King's Landing politics, but she's pretty happy where she is and she has a lot of experience. And like,
Yeah.
one of the things that keeps getting kicked around about this claimant petition moment, like that it's Lucerys, right? The younger,
Yeah.
yeah, that like
He's not old enough. He has
he's
no
not
idea how
old
to.
enough, and you guys can't be his advisors.
Yeah,
You have to come in and like disrupt all this shit instead of being like, you know what? You are too young. I'm going to step in. I'm going to help you
right.
out. We're going to make sure we handle this together. And then when history remembers us, they'll remember us as a strong team. Nope. That does not happen. So it's just like this, like stepping in and like trying to like push things apart where they have an opportunity to bring things together. It's a good balance. This episode is a good balance.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move forward here a little
Please,
bit.
please.
So, we have Damon doing a little rock climbing, finding a clutch of eggs. Good for him. He's got
Good
some
job.
kids on the way that are going to need some dragons. I get it.
Got to restock the supply.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have Rhaenyra at Dragonstone, and we have Jacaerys learning High Valyrian, and loved this scene because
Yes.
we are definitely getting little side stories here on the two eldest boys. So we have Aegon being a
Mm-hmm.
complete fuck
A
up,
hole.
terrible person.
Aegon being
That's
an a
putting
hole.
it nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have Jace, so stately and genial and learning High Valerian and wanting to, I don't know, do what is expected of him
Mm-hmm.
as a king.
Yeah,
So,
as the heir to the next heir to the heir to the throne. And the
right.
his exchange with Rhaenyra is so sweet. Like she's like, you can't learn High Valyrian in one day, kiddo. And he's like, Mom,
Right. I'm
I'm
trying.
gonna do it. And I
Yeah.
like this. This isn't a very big scene. There isn't a whole lot happening, but I
Hmm.
now have this really great insight into Rhaenyra's relationship with her children and the way that her
Right.
children approach their lives, what their moral code and compass looks like. He's busy worrying about translating High Valyrian, and
Hmm.
Aegon is out sexually assaulting the maids.
Yes. Exactly.
Slightly different.
Exactly.
Slightly
Yeah.
different. Yeah,
Yeah, and it shows how they were parented. I
it
mean,
does. I
sorry,
agree.
Allison,
Yeah,
but
sorry,
you're a
Alicent.
mess. You're a
Yeah,
mess.
her restrictive, fear induced style of parenting is
Atrocious.
agreed. And I mean, Aegon is exactly what you can expect from that kind of parenting style, or else timid and afraid and absolutely broken and useless.
Yeah.
Either way, you're not going to get a healthy human being who's going to be able to do something like, I don't know, take over a throne someday. Whereas with
Right.
Rhaenyra and Daemon, who have this very like, fuck the world, these are the things that are important to us as a family. This is how we talk and behave with our family. We've had scenes with both Daemon and Rhaenyra where they are conversing and like encouraging the education of their children, and that is huge. That's huge. Teach your children how to think for themselves, and they will want to. And that's Alicent. You're not doing that. You're not doing
Truth.
that.
Truth. Okay. Rhaenyra and Daemon are going to go to the capital to defend Lucerys' claim.
Yep.
We have the arrival in King's Landing, and once again, we have this situation where a family is not greeted. So it's
Right.
like the audacity, right?
Right.
But there is one lord at the doors who greets Rhaenyra, and it's Lord Caswell. And I remember him from a previous episode after she had given birth, I believe,
Okay.
where he always seems to be like, as soon as Rhaenyra is turning a corner, he's like that guy that's there who is like, I'm here to help. So I have
Mm-hmm.
a feeling he's going to play somewhat of this like staunch supporter role for
Mm-hmm.
Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
So Rhaenyra shows up. She doesn't even recognize her old home.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen the architecture of the castle has changed via Alicent's
Mm-hmm.
removal of Targaryen heraldry and replacing it
Mm-hmm.
with the faith of the seven. I don't know why I want to say memorabilia, but
Iconography.
to me, this feels like Alicent almost being in this constant state of atonement.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some people would probably think this is like very heavy handed, kind of like today in our society, we see these people who are like claiming to be very religious. Like I'm thinking
Right.
of these pastors of like mega churches who
Yeah.
keep getting in trouble with embezzling and
Right.
giving their
And all kinds of terrible things.
yeah,
All
yeah,
kinds of
yeah.
terrible things.
Right. So I mean I don't know if that was the intention, but it kind of felt like this nod to the real world,
Mm-hmm.
and Alicent kind of like trying to cover up her misdeeds with religious symbolism everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's Alicent's atonement decor. No more tapestries. No more porn flavored tapestries for King's
Right?
Landing. Yeah. And it's
Right?
so like quiet. There isn't anyone walking through the halls. And
No,
I think
huge difference between the
yep.
scene where after Rhaenyra gave birth
Mm-hmm.
and the castle is just full of life, and now it's
Crowded.
like this empty cathedral.
Empty. No one's there. Which also goes back to what you were saying earlier in regards to wanting more representation of other families and whatnot. Because, especially right now in this moment, we are seeing a very obvious exclusion of any other possibility of the crown being influenced by anyone outside Alicent and Otto. So it's like the whole castle's on hospice care for the king and just is
Hmm.
like hobbling along, and that just gives them free reign to do pretty much whatever they want.
Yeah, and they are, and that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what they're doing. I mean, Otto is feeding Viserys milk of the poppy, and Viserys, he doesn't even have a clue what's going on. I mean,
Poor
no
guy.
clue.
Poor guy.
Politically, I mean, this is just scary.
Mm-hmm.
Scary. I was gonna say, like, I also don't know if this is going to go anywhere with the introduction of the Faith of the Seven, because
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, the Catholic Church and
Mm-hmm.
the high rulers of Europe, and there's kind of this washing of each other's backs
Oh,
in many
absolutely.
situations.
Mm-hmm.
And when that tie is cut, then you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at war between the religious side and the side of the crown.
Mm-hmm.
So if Alicent is kind of opening the doors up to the faith of the seven, this is like what happened in Game of Thrones with Cersei.
Mm-hmm.
There's that
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for them to kind of like worm their way in and start asking for more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's going to happen or if it's just to usher Alicent's storyline along and then be
Yeah.
like forgotten. I don't know.
I don't know either, but I would be intrigued to see it move forward. I feel as though in Game of Thrones there's a heavier emphasis on organized religion.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they're doing their marriage ceremony, it's done in the name of the seven and blah, blah, blah. And you've got the Sept of Baelor, which is like for the seven, right? Isn't that what that's for?
Yeah, in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, yeah, which is taking place later. So that means at some point, this religion needed to come up to be important enough to have that level of power and presence in King's Landing. So it's possible. I don't think they'll bring it all the way through in season 1 just yet.
No, we've got two
Yeah.
episodes.
Yeah. And there
I
there are
don't
a lot of
know.
other things that need to be addressed, and I mean the direction that this is going to have to take now because of the ending that happened with this episode, it's going to be a cluster cuss. Like there are going to be
Yeah.
a lot of things that they're going to have to address. So like accelerating this like religious zealot storyline might not happen this season. I do think it's going to be important. I think we've been talking about that this has the possibility of being important for a while. We're like, is Allison going to
Yeah.
become like a religious zealot? Like, is she going to And I mean, we do see, historically speaking, what happens when monarchs become religious zealots. It's not good. It's not good, especially when you decide that no one can practice any other way than the way that you have said can be practiced. And I hope this doesn't take us too far forward, but there comes that moment where Alicent finally comes and says hello to Rhaenyra and Daemon, and they're like, "It was thanks for showing up. We're glad you could make time for us." But
Right, right.
Damon's like, "So can't help but notice the Targaryen heraldry has been taken down. There's religious stuff going up. Like, what the heck?" And she's like, "This is just a guide to the people in these times of darkness, blah, blah, blah." And then
Yeah.
Rhaenyra's like, "Yeah, but tomorrow, when you're deciding, because it is going to be you, we all know that, when you're deciding the succession, whose moral code is going to be making that decision? Will it be the one that is on the side of legality and the way that it should be, quote unquote, or is it going to come through the rule of religious restrictions?" So,
Mm-hmm.
like, we've seen Alicent and her whole moral high ground goodness thing, like, which way do you think she's going to go? It's a fair question from Rhaenyra. And
Right.
I really like that she just kind of like was
Laying it out there. Yeah.
exactly, what are you going to do? Because I see what you're doing. Not happy about it.
Okay, so eventually Rhaenyra and Daemon meet with Viserys and they introduce him to their
Two sons?
fourth and fifth sons.
Uh-huh.
So the fourth and fifth sons of Rhaenyra, which
Uh-huh.
are Aegon. So now we
Mm-hmm.
have a second Aegon
Mm-hmm.
and Viserys. And I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
a really heartfelt moment when he's like, a fine name for a king. I'm like, oh, my heart.
Right. I teared up. I teared up. I teared up so many times this episode. It was really nice.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if is this foreshadowing that Viserys is going to become king? But that would mean Luke, Jace, Joffrey,
Mm-hmm.
and Aegon all have to die, which I'm like, oh damn. Like, okay, crazier things have happened
It's true.
in this series.
And in real life, this is not an unheard of thing. I mean, we're on the discussion of warfare happening.
Mhm.
Once we get to the end of this episode, we have a grenade thrown into this like potential happy realliance of the family that's just going to splinter them all apart, which means that they're going to start going for each other's throats. So is it possible that like the first 3 kids are going to die? Yep, I think actually it is.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Glad to see I'm not like overreaching
No,
here.
I was actually kind of thinking about that the same way because I was like, Rhaenyra, why would you have an Aegon? Like, why would you name one of your kids Aegon when there's already another Aegon? That's just confusing.
Yeah, I took it as either her or Damon just wanting to fuck with Alicent. Like, oh, you have an Aegon? We have an
So do
Aegon.
we.
Yeah.
We have a better Aegon,
Right?
actually. Your Aegon
So
sucks.
we have this next Alicent scene. We talked about it a little bit. Aegon has raped a maid, Diana,
Yep.
and Alicent comforts her, but also threatens her and then feeds her moon tea. And it's
Right.
like, oh, you're such a wonderful person, Alicent.
She's got like,
Like,
there's a routine to this. She's done
yeah,
this.
yeah,
She's done
yeah.
this.
It
And
felt
like
rehearsed.
her handmaiden or lady's maid or whatever it is like, all right, passing you along to take care of distraught girl. I'll go brew tea. Give me a minute. I'll be right back. And I mean, seriously, I was like, oh, Allison, you're like, are you like an actual compassionate person? Have you made changes? Like the way that she was holding her and was like,
Mm-hmm.
I believe you. I think she wants to be. Like, I think part of her really wants to be that kind of person,
But
but
I mean,
she's
doesn't,
not.
yeah, but that's like every hypocrite, right? I mean,
Truth. Truth.
we're gonna bundle on the tragedy here.
Mm-hmm.
But Helena enters the room completely unaware of anything happening. she and Aegon are married at this point. So this is her husband who has.
Wait. Wow. I did not catch that.
Yeah, because she comes in and asks for Diana if she's going to come help with the children, completely unaware of what's going on. And I really like Helena, which makes me terrified. She's probably gonna be not
Mm-hmm.
with us much longer.
Right.
If they go with how they've been going, anyone who is likable kind of gets yeeted off the
Mm-hmm.
show
Yeah.
via fake death, real death. Yeah.
Right. I had caught that Aegon was married, and I had caught that Helena was married. I had not caught that they were married to each other.
Yeah, so we are now in the training yard. Aemon has gotten big. He's a hell of a swordsman now. Vaemond arrives, and it's like, okay, now we have this culmination of Otto, Vaemond, and Alicent all chit
Mm-hmm.
chatting about how Luke is just a child. How is he going to command the biggest fleet?
Yep.
So they have just, like, Vaemond comes in, has sidestepped everyone, goes straight to Alicent and Otto because
Mm-hmm.
clearly they're in power here. Then we have this Godswood moment with Rhaenyra and Rhaenys.
Mm-hmm.
And again, she's like, Baela has done well as your ward.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where this deal happens.
Mm-hmm.
And Rhaenyra swears she's not complicit in Laenor's death. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the second time in the series, I think, that Rhaenyra has sworn in front of a weirwood tree.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, well, I guess each time she's like technically right, but not
She's
100% forthcoming.
she's
So it's
Aes
like,
Sedai right.
yeah, exactly.
I think one of the things that I liked in this discussion between Rhaenyra and Rhaenys is after Rhaenyra makes the offer of like matching the children together, Rhaenys' response is that it is either a really generous or a really desperate offer.
Hmm.
And Rhaenyra says, "What does it matter?" And I was like, "Thank you, Rhaenyra." I'm. It's so often like discussions like that come down to this like, well, what's the benefit? What's the downside? Blah blah blah. And she's like, what difference does it make? We could both see where this would go, and it would be
Hmm.
better than anything we've got going on right now. Why would you fight
Yeah.
against this?
And
And
this is a callback to her doing the exact same thing with Alicent, and
mm-hmm,
Alicent being like, oh, like how sweet she is when she knows she's cornered.
right,
So, like, we're having the same offer being given to two different people, and sorry, they're just really, I mean, really hammering home how much we should hate Alicent.
right. You have no options on this.
Yeah. So we end up back in Viserys' chamber,
Good, 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 good. That's my next
and
note too.
Rhaenyra asks him to defend her,
Mm-hmm.
and we go back to this quote of Aegon the Conqueror's dream.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that was done really well is Rhaenyra's emotional reaction to what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
this is a really complicated situation for her with many, many, many emotions involved. And her being like, this is a heavy burden. I thought I wanted this as a child. And as an adult, all it's done is wreck my life. I really am not a fan of being heir to the throne. And she's like, your attempt to not divide the kingdom by making me heir divided the kingdom anyway. And so
Hmm.
she's like, but if this is what you want, I'll do it. But you have to defend me. You have to defend my children. You have to do that. And it's just this like heartbreaking moment of her like looking for help, like a strong, solid hand of help from her father who is in a position where he very likely cannot
Hmm.
physically, mentally step up to do that. But it gets through his opium-addled brain.
Yeah. Kind of.
I mean seriously?
The seed was planted. Like,
Yes. Like he heard her, he saw her through all of that somehow. It's like I think it's because it's what he really really wants. You know? He really wants the succession to be smooth. He really wants his family to find peace together. He really wants the House of the Dragon to be this like cohesive group of people and
I
stop
would
all of the
argue,
infighting. Oh, please.
I would say he really wants to honor his late wife's, I guess, legacy with,
Mm-hmm.
their only daughter together. And at the end of this episode, I feel like he seemed at peace, like he was ready to go to Emma.
Mm-hmm.
Rhaenyra is that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything good about his relationship with his first wife.
Oh, I
And
like that.
I feel like he's fighting for her just as much as he's fighting for Rhaenyra.
Oh, I really like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I really, really like that.
So let's get to the petition.
Can we just giggle for a moment when Viserys tells Otto that he wants to have supper, and Otto goes, "It's morning, sire," and he's like, "I mean tonight, dum
I
dum."
mean tonight, you idiot. I did really like that. I did.
I had a good
Jesus
giggle.
Christ, Otto, I'm not a fucking idiot.
Like he even lifts his poor broken body a little bit to be like, "You fool, Otto." Sorry, like there are so many good little moments in this whole thing that like build up to making a really, really good episode. But yes, the claimant petition time, that is definitely the meat of this episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Otto is sitting for the king, bold.
Mm-hmm.
I guess not. That's like literally his job if the king's not around, but
Yeah,
still.
but should he be sitting on the throne?
Exactly.
Like that, I kept wondering about that.
It's a callback to when Ned Stark did it. So
Okay. I guess
I'm
it
guessing.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Otto is hearing Vaemon's petition,
Mm-hmm.
and Rhaenyra starts speaking, and it really looks like Rhaenyra's not going to get what she wants here. And then we have the slowest, the longest, the saddest hobbling of Viserys to the throne. I shouldn't be joking about it because it was so well done. I mean,
it really was. It really, really was. But I was in the same camp. Like part of me was like crying and like just like yes, fuck yes,
at the same time,
and at the same time,
move
like,
it along.
But did you?
Someone get the man a fucking chair.
He's real slow, guys. He's real slow.
And then I was completely paranoid he was gonna slip and just impale himself on one of those swords. That's what I was like waiting to happen.
That is like a nightmare of an approach to something when you can barely walk. Good point.
Right?
I hadn't really thought about that. He can't even like put his hand out for like support anywhere. It's all blades.
So we have this really touching moment where the crown falls off of his head, but Daemon is there to pick it up and place it back on him.
He like helps him up the stairs the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying really hard to like make us feel for Daemon and make him a great character.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first couple episodes, I was like, I don't think there's going to be anything redeeming about this man. Like, he bludgeoned his wife's head in with a rock.
Right, yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, he just really wants his brother's love, and that's all he was looking for his entire life, and he's finding it. How sweet. Right. Anyways, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Daemon is a sociopath. Like, this guy is...
He's a lovable sociopath. That's what it is.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So we ask for Rhaenys side of the story, and she's like, yep, gonna go with my husband's decision. Viserys is the heir to Driftmark. Vaemon is enraged, and he's like, Rhaenyra's children, they're bastards.
Bastards! She is a whore!
Yeah.
Dang, guy. Dang.
I wish that I could have seen my face as he was saying that, because I know that my mouth was hanging open like,
Right?
oh no, he didn't. Did he
He
really?
sure did.
Okay, he
He
did.
sure did.
And then Viserys is like, I'll have
Oh,
his
your
tongue,
tongue
you
back.
know? Like, oh, that was so quick. It shocked the hell out of me. Shocked
Yeah.
me.
I was expecting like possibly like being
I thought he was gonna
dragged
get tackled.
away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like possibly like tossed in a cell later on for like some sort of, beheading because of the way that he spoke.
After
Like
dinner
maybe
theater.
right. But instead Damon's like, "Man, fuck that. You just called my wife a whore. You just insulted the legitimacy of my stepchildren in front of everybody. Nope,
Mm-hmm.
just not having it. Not having it." And of course, the way that he manages to cut off Vamon's head leaves his tongue in his mouth. And so he was
Yeah.
like, he can keep his tongue. Damon. He is so good. Matt Smith does such a good job of playing Damon in the show. Like, he does not say a lot,
Agreed.
but his presence, the way that he moves, like I'm a big Matt Smith fan anyway. And so getting to see him like this and having that switch, like not having him be like
Mm-hmm.
this absolutely narrow character. We could have just kept him as like the resentful,
Mm-hmm.
overlooked second son, blah, blah, blah. And instead, he's out dragon egg collecting and having babies and taking care of his wife and teaching his kids
Yeah.
High Valyrian. And you're like, not quite sure how you went from weird murderer to defender of the family, but I'm here for it. I like it. I think Damon's probably my favorite character at the moment.
Yeah. He's entertaining, that's for sure.
I think that's what it is, and it's authentically entertaining. Another thing that I think was done really, really well with this episode, and I think Matt Smith and Damon's character exemplify this, is how much this was about conversation and communication and not so much like special effects and violence and like the other things that have almost defined Game of Thrones as a franchise. To say that this was a tender episode just feels really weird. But to give a character arc like this to someone like Damon is, I don't know, I like
Yeah, it
it.
was like half heart, half gore.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this is just a nod to the writers and the directing of this episode, because it was really well done. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of good balance here.
Absolutely.
So we end up moving to the feast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like whiplash, because all of these small moments, tender, awful, like
Mm-hmm.
it's all here and it's all happening so quickly. Alicent's praying, Damon's eye rolling, Viserys is toasting, Aegon is jesting, like, Jace, you'll finally get to lay with a woman. And he says this in front of Baela. The princes start a fight. We have this like last valiant stand of King Viserys. Literally, I think this is the last time he ever will stand again
Yeah,
at all.
I think you're right.
And he removes his eye patch, and everyone is just completely shocked into seriousness about life and mortality. I would say everyone
Right.
except Alicent's asshole children.
Right.
And
They're exempt from a lot of things.
right, and Rhaenyra is like giving this heartfelt toast to Alicent, and
So
then
good.
Alicent responds in kindness back to Rhaenyra and makes a toast to her. And again, like, Aegon is making propositions to Baela, which are just really crude and nasty.
Mm-hmm.
And Jace kind of like controls his rage, and instead of beating the brakes off of Aegon, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give a toast
Mm-hmm.
to my uncles, maybe be friends and allies. And then we have this small little speaking line by Helena, and she's like, beware the beast beneath the boards. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of a tongue
It
twister.
is, yeah.
What was your take on that?
Bafflement.
Bafflement. I'm so confused with
Mm-hmm.
this,
Same.
really. We did keep seeing the rats down there. What I'm taking from all of this is that this is again going back to the end of the episode when Massaria is meeting with one of Alicent's handmaids, where she was like, "It was quite the night in the castle, I hear." And I'm like, okay, so are the beasts beneath the floorboards like spies? And like the rats are just kind of like a foreshadowing of spies? Because now it seems like we have Massaria has spies because she was originally the one that was it Otto had met, where he learned of Rhaenyra and Daemon getting together in the brothel.
I think so.
And we have Laris, your guy,
Mm-hmm.
who has his b-boys. He has his henchmen, or
I
cronies,
love that.
henchmen. I don't know what the difference is, but
B-boys. B-boys for life.
yeah, I feel like maybe we're gonna get some inclusion of secrecy spy masters somewhere in the story, but I'm not quite sure who to point my finger at just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like for this to become a bigger plot line because, as I said at the beginning of this episode, I feel like there's more interesting things in the story when we include people outside of the Targaryen family, outside of the, I would say 3 major royal houses.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hightowers, the Valerians, and the Targaryens. I would like this opened up a little bit more.
Definitely. Yeah. It's going to happen.
It has to. It has to. It can't be.
Like we get all the way through the whole dinner thing, and there really feels like there's this sincere attempt at reconciliation, but then Aemon and Aegon have their scuffle with like Jace and Lucerys and whatnot. Daemon's shutdown of Aemon is so fun because all he has to do is like step in front of him. He says nothing. He says nothing.
This was after the 3 strong boys speech.
Right, yeah. Like I salute.
Yeah, there was a face off for sure, but it almost felt to me like Aemon liked it. Because did you see the look on his face after Daemon like sliced up Vaemon?
Yes.
I mean, Daemon has done some terrible stuff, and I think that Aemon's gonna like one up him shortly.
I think the difference will be because I absolutely agree with you. 100, like, so much about Aemon in this episode made me think of Daemon from our first few episodes in the season. And I think there's going to be like a split where Aemon just takes what Daemon's character could have been had he stayed on like a darker, more destructive path. And I feel like he's gonna go in that direction. And somehow I feel like Daemon finds it all kind of amusing.
Yeah.
Like after Aemon like stalks off, he turns and he kind of like smiles at Rhaenyra and is like, "All right, well I guess bedtime."
Yeah.
Like I love his facial expressions, his observations, like everything he feels about the situation. Maybe not everything. An extent of how he feels about the situation definitely comes across in like how he portrays himself and not in what he says. And I love it when actors can do that. It's like Daniel Henney playing Lan in Wheel of Time, like you have to do so much with who you are and not just with what you're given to say. And I think that's a talent.
Okay, Tracy, before we end this, any closing points on the mistaken verge of death confession of your face is in your hand
Viserys?
Right now? Viserys.
I mean, Yeah, yeah. So you just had to know. You just had to know. You know, we have these like tender moments and like these reconciliation points, and things look like maybe, just maybe, Allison and Rhaenyra might actually become friends again. And oh, I wanted that. I was like, why not? Why not? Wouldn't that be nice? What if they got along instead? And then Viserys is like, by the way, just kidding. Aegon is supposed to be the prince. That's the one that we're waiting for. So she, of course,
The
thinks like
prince who
her
was
Aegon. She doesn't think
promised. Yeah.
Rhaenyra is Aegon. Yeah, to unite the
These fucking
kingdoms.
Targaryens, man. Every time there's a Targaryen, they're like, clearly it's gonna be my son who's the prince that was promised, or like my daughter, whoever. But
Right.
it's like, how many generations is this fucking gonna go on? It's
All
like a
of them.
conspiracy that every like US sitting president, when they get sworn in, they get to learn about aliens or something. you know?
Right?
Like
Yeah,
every new
yeah.
Targaryen, it's like, oh, you're gonna be king or queen. By the way, there's this big
Yep.
prophecy. We don't talk about it. It's all hush hush.
Shh.
Yeah.
I think the actress that played Allison portrayed the emotions of that moment really, really, really well. Because we do come right off of the heels of her reaching for Rhaenyra's hand, asking her if she can stay. And now Viserys is like, nope. What I have just told you is going to rip everything apart that I just did over the last hour or whatever.
Viserys,
You
one last
know?
fuck up.
She's basically told her kid, her eldest son, you're no son of mine. She knows he's a shit show. She doesn't respect him. She doesn't even really seem to like him all that much. And she's been exposed to Rhaenyra, who did that beautiful toast. Like, and it was so sincere. Like, what she had to say was such a necessary thing to say. And I think all Allison had ever wanted to hear was someone acknowledging the sacrifice that she had put into what she had done. And it just like, that vulnerability, that openness just gets crushed. And so I guess my last thought is this had a very Game of Thrones ending without being a super Game of Thrones feeling episode. And it kept me off balance and I enjoyed it. And I am really excited to see what the next episodes are going to be in, because I think we're going to have that big expansion.
Here, here. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.